From $50 Heiress to high-end Escort, the dark truth nobody knew. The price of freedom. The first time Isabella Montgomery charged $10,000 for her company, she was wearing a $50,000 dress her father had bought her for her 24th birthday. The irony wasn't lost on her as she stood in the penthouse suite of the Mandarin Oriental, looking out over the glittering lights of San Francisco while a tech billionaire poured 2 glasses of champagne behind her. She'd told her family she was attending a fundraiser for climate refugees. Technically, she wasn't lying. She was raising funds, just not in the way they imagined. "To beautiful companions," the man said, handing her a glass. His neural interface flickered blue at his temple, the latest model, probably cost more than most people made in a year. Everything about him screamed wealth. The custom-tailored suit, the subtle scent of cologne that cost $1,200 an ounce, the practiced ease of someone who'd never been told no. Isabella smiled, the expression perfect and empty. To new beginnings. 6 months earlier, she'd been exactly what everyone expected. Stanford neuroscience graduate, daughter of tech royalty, engaged to a rising political star, photographed at charity galas and society weddings. Her life was a carefully curated Instagram feed of privilege and promise, each post liked by thousands of followers who envied her perfect existence. Then something changed. Her best friend Charlotte noticed it first during their weekly brunch at the yacht club. Isabella had ordered her usual avocado toast, but barely touched it, her attention fixed on her phone as her fingers moved across the holographic display, typing rapidly. "Earth to Bella," Charlotte said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You've been weird for weeks. What's going on?" "Nothing," Isabella said, sliding her phone into her Hermes bag. "Just busy with the foundation." The Montgomery Foundation was Isabella's official occupation, a charitable organization focused on technology education for underprivileged youth. Respectable, meaningful, boring. The kind of work rich people did to feel useful. But Charlotte knew her too well. "You're lying, you have that look." "What look?" "The look you had when you were 16 and convinced us to sneak out to that rave in Oakland. The look that says you're planning something nobody will approve of." Isabella's smile was enigmatic. "Maybe I'm just tired of being predictable." What Charlotte didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Isabella had already made her first arrangement through Discreet Elite, a high-end escort service that catered to the ultra-wealthy. The platform operated on blockchain technology, completely encrypted, transactions in cryptocurrency that left no traditional paper trail. In an age where AI surveillance tracked every movement and neural interfaces recorded every thought you chose to share, Discreet Elite offered something increasingly rare: complete privacy. She'd chosen the name Sophia. It meant wisdom in Greek, and there was a dark humor in that choice that appealed to her. Her clients never understood why a woman who could buy anything would sell the one thing money couldn't buy. They saw her designer clothes, recognized the Montgomery name when she occasionally let it slip, and couldn't comprehend why someone like her would be there. Some assumed addiction, others a rebellious phase. A few suspected she got off on the danger. None of them guessed the truth. "You're not like the others," a venture capitalist told her one night in a suite at the St. Regis. He was in his 50s, successful enough to afford her rate without blinking. "The way you carry yourself, the things you know about neural interface technology. Who are you really?" "Does it matter?" Isabella asked, her voice detached, professional. "I suppose not, but I'm curious. A woman like you doesn't need the money." She thought about the number growing in her encrypted offshore account, thought about the 137 names in her private database, thought about what freedom actually cost. "Everyone needs something," she said. Her family's concern grew in proportion to her increasing absences. Her father, Richard Montgomery, had built an empire on neural interface technology that allowed humans to seamlessly interact with AI systems. He was a man who solved problems through innovation and capital. His daughter's strange behavior was a problem he couldn't solve with either. "I'm worried about you," he said during one of their increasingly rare dinners at the family estate in Pacific Heights. The house was a monument to tech wealth. smart glass that adjusted to optimal lighting, an AI assistant named Arya who anticipated every need, art worth millions on every wall. Isabella cut her Wagyu beef with precision. There's nothing to worry about. You've broken off your engagement. You barely work at the foundation anymore. Your friends say you're never available. Isabella, talk to me. She looked at her father, this man who'd given her everything except the one thing that mattered. I'm finding myself, Dad. Isn't that what people my age are supposed to do? Not like this. You're shutting everyone out. Maybe I need to be alone to figure out who I am when I'm not being who everyone expects me to be. It was a good answer, the kind of thing a therapist might say. Her father wanted to believe it because the alternative was too disturbing to consider. What he didn't know was that Isabella had just returned from an appointment that had netted her $15,000. What he couldn't see was the encrypted file on her neural interface where she meticulously tracked every transaction, every penny allocated to her mysterious project. Her brother James was less easy to fool. 2 years older, he'd always been protective of his little sister. He noticed the way she flinched when touched, the hollow look in her eyes at family gatherings, the careful distance she maintained from everyone who loved her. Something's wrong, he told their mother, Victoria Montgomery, a woman who'd turned philanthropy into an art form and expected her daughter to do the same. Bella's not herself. Victoria sighed, looking out at the bay from her meditation room. Even her spiritual practice was optimized, guided by an AI that monitored her cortisol levels and adjusted the ambient lighting and music accordingly. She's going through something. We need to give her space. Or we need to find out what's actually happening. James, she's an adult. She has a right to her privacy. But James couldn't shake the feeling that his sister was in danger, not from someone else, but from herself. He started watching her more carefully, noting the nights she claimed to be at the symphony, but her social media showed no check-in. The charity events she supposedly attended, but nobody remembered seeing her at. The private investigator's report contained numbers that didn't make sense, until they did. James had hired Marcus Chen reluctantly, feeling guilty about invading his sister's privacy, but more afraid of what might happen if he didn't. Marcus was discreet, expensive, and thorough. He specialized in cases involving the ultra-wealthy, people who had the resources to hide their secrets behind layers of encryption and misdirection. But everyone made mistakes, left digital breadcrumbs, had moments of carelessness. Isabella's mistake was using the same coffee shop near Discreet Elite's physical office. They maintained one despite being primarily digital, for clients who preferred face-to-face arrangements. Marcus had footage of her entering the building 6 times over 3 weeks, always dressed immaculately, always alone. Your sister is working as a high-end escort, Marcus told James in a coffee shop in the Mission, his voice low despite the privacy field generator on the table that scrambled their conversation from any listening devices. She uses the name Sophia, charges $10,000 to $15,000 per appointment. She's been doing it for approximately 8 months. James felt the world tilt. That's impossible. She has a $50 million trust fund. She doesn't need money. I'm aware. That's what makes this case unusual. Marcus slid a tablet across the table, showing transaction records he'd obtained through methods James didn't want to know about. She's made roughly $2.3 million so far. None of it has gone to personal accounts. Where's it going? That's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulled up a visualization of money flowing through a complex web of cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore accounts. She's laundering it through multiple channels, but the end destination is always the same, a series of accounts registered to something called Project Phoenix. James stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. What is Project Phoenix? I don't know yet. The security around it is unlike anything I've seen outside of government black ops. Your sister has gone to extraordinary lengths to keep this secret. Can you find out? Marcus hesitated. I can try, but James, you need to understand. Whatever this is, Isabella has been planning it for a long time. This isn't impulsive or reckless. This is calculated, systematic. She knows exactly what she's doing. That was what terrified James most. Not that his sister had lost her mind, but that she was completely sane and still making these choices. He confronted her the next day at her apartment in Soma, a modern space that looked like it had been decorated by an AI programmed to create the appearance of personality without any actual warmth. Everything was perfectly curated and completely sterile. "I know what you're doing," he said without preamble when she opened the door. Isabella's expression didn't change. She stepped aside to let him enter. "Do you?" Sophia, discreet elite, the offshore accounts, Project Phoenix. He watched her carefully, looking for any crack in her composure. "Bella, what the hell is going on?" She poured herself a glass of water from the filtered dispenser, her movements unhurried. "I'm living my life." "By selling yourself, you have $50 million. I have access to $50 million. There's a difference." "What does that even mean?" She wasn't running from her wealth. She was using it as a weapon. But a weapon against what? Against whom? Isabella sat down on her minimalist couch, looking at her brother with an expression he couldn't read. "Do you know what the average person makes in a lifetime, James? About $1.7 million. That's 40 years of work, of sacrificing their time and health and dreams. And I was just given $50 million for being born into the right family. So this is about guilt. You're punishing yourself." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm making a choice. To destroy yourself, to throw away everything you have." She smiled, and it was the saddest thing James had ever seen. "You still don't understand. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally using what I have for something that matters." "Then tell me what Project Phoenix is. Help me understand." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if I tell you, you'll try to stop me, and I can't let that happen." James felt desperation clawing at his chest. "Bella, please. Whatever you're planning, there has to be another way." "There isn't. I've run the numbers 1,000 times. This is the only path that works." She stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. "Go home, James. Tell Mom and Dad whatever you need to tell them. But let me finish what I started." "And if I can't do that?" Her eyes met his, and in them he saw a determination that frightened him more than anything else. "Then you'll have to live with knowing you could have helped and chose not to." After James left, Isabella stood at her window looking out at the city. The fog was rolling in from the bay, obscuring the tops of buildings in gray mist. Somewhere out there were 137 people whose lives depended on her completing her mission. The offshore accounts weren't for her. They were for 137 people she'd never met. Young women and girls from Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America. Victims of trafficking who'd been promised jobs and ended up in situations they couldn't escape from. Isabella had discovered the network by accident during her neuroscience research at Stanford. She'd been studying neural patterns in trauma victims when she encountered a young woman named Mai at a clinic where Isabella volunteered. Mai's brain scans showed the distinctive patterns of someone who'd experienced sustained psychological torture. Through careful, patient conversations, Mai had revealed the truth. She'd been trafficked at 16, promised a job as a nanny in America, and instead found herself trapped in an escort service that catered to the ultra-wealthy. The people who ran it were protected by money, connections, and the kind of legal infrastructure that made prosecution nearly impossible. "There are others," Mai had whispered. "So many others. They keep us moving, different cities, different countries. We can't escape. They watch everything." Isabella had gone home that night and couldn't sleep. She had access to resources most people couldn't imagine. She had connections, education, privilege, and she'd been using it all to attend galas and post on social media while women her age were trapped in modern slavery. She'd started researching, using her neural interface and AI assistants to map the network. What she found was horrifying in its scope and sophistication. The trafficking operation was run like a corporation, with LLC shells and offshore accounts and legitimate business fronts. The men who bought these women's time were the same men who sat on charity boards and donated to political campaigns. Men like the ones who became her clients, when she joined discreet elite. The plan had formed slowly, carefully. She couldn't go to the authorities. Half of them were clients or protected the clients. She couldn't expose the network publicly. The victims would be killed or disappeared before anything could be done. She needed money, lots of it, to execute what she had in mind. And she needed information, the kind of information men only shared when they felt powerful and protected by the anonymity of a transaction. So Isabella Montgomery became Sophia, and she listened. She collected names, account numbers, locations. She recorded everything on an encrypted neural storage device that even the most sophisticated AI couldn't crack. And she earned money, dollar by dollar, appointment by appointment. $10,000 here, $15,000 there. Each transaction bringing her closer to the $3 million she needed for Project Phoenix. The cost wasn't just financial. Each night she spent with these men who saw her as a commodity, who believed money entitled them to anything, took something from her. She felt herself becoming hollow, carved out from the inside, a beautiful shell with nothing inside. Her therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, noticed during their sessions. You're dissociating more frequently. The detachment you're experiencing is a trauma response. Isabella nodded, making notes in her neural interface. I know what it is. Then you know it's unsustainable. Whatever you're doing, it's damaging you psychologically. Some things are worth the damage. Isabella, nothing is worth destroying yourself. But Dr. Chen was wrong. Some things were worth any price. The question was whether Isabella would survive long enough to pay it. Her family staged an intervention 3 months before everything fell apart. They gathered at the estate. Her parents, James, Charlotte, even her ex-fiancé Marcus, who still loved her in that confused, helpless way of someone who'd lost something they never really understood. We're worried about you, Victoria said, her voice trembling. You've changed. You're not the girl we know. Maybe the girl you knew was never real, Isabella said quietly. Richard leaned forward, his neural interface pulsing as he accessed information. I had our AI analyze your behavior patterns over the past year. The psychological profile suggests severe depression, possible dissociative disorder, high risk of self-harm. You had an AI diagnose me without my consent. I'm your father. I'm trying to help you. Isabella stood up, her calm finally cracking. You want to help me, then leave me alone. Let me finish what I started. What you started, James demanded. Destroying yourself, throwing away your future. My future, Isabella laughed, a harsh sound that made everyone flinch. What future, James? Marrying Marcus and producing Montgomery heirs, running the foundation and attending charity events, living in a beautiful cage and pretending I'm free. That's not fair, Charlotte said softly. We love you, we're trying to understand. Isabella felt something break inside her, some last wall between her and the truth. You want to understand? Fine, I'll tell you. I'm doing this because I can. Because I have resources and privilege and access that most people don't. Because there are 137 women out there who are being sold every day, and nobody with the power to help them gives a damn. The room was silent. I've spent the last year collecting evidence against one of the largest trafficking networks operating in the United States. I've identified the key players, mapped their financial infrastructure, and documented their crimes. But evidence isn't enough. These people are protected by money and influence. So I'm building something else, something that will actually set these women free. Project Phoenix, James said. Project Phoenix, Isabella confirmed. It's an extraction network. Safe houses, new identities, relocation assistance. It costs approximately $22,000 per person to safely extract someone from this network and set them up with a new life. I've raised $2.3 million so far. I need $3.1 million total. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. Why didn't you just ask us for the money? Because this isn't about money. Isabella's voice rose. If I'd asked you for $3 million to free sex trafficking victims, you would have written a check and felt good about yourselves. But you wouldn't have understood the cost. You wouldn't have known what it's like to be commodified, to have your body treated as a transaction. You wouldn't have listened to these men talk about women like we're products to be consumed. You wouldn't have felt what these women feel every single day. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I needed to understand. I needed to know what it felt like to be reduced to a price tag, because how could I save them if I didn't understand what I was saving them from? Richard's face had gone pale. Bella, you're not responsible for saving the world. But I'm responsible for how I use what I have. And I have so much, Dad. So much money, so much privilege, so much power. And for what? To make more money? To accumulate more things I don't need? These women have nothing. They've been robbed of their futures, their dignity, their freedom, and I have the resources to help them. There are organizations that do this work, Marcus said gently. Professionals, you didn't have to. The organizations are underfunded and overwhelmed. They save dozens when there are thousands who need saving, and they can't access the circles I can access. They can't get the information I can get. She wiped her eyes. I know what I'm doing sounds insane. I know I've hurt you, worried you, made you think I've lost my mind. But I haven't. I'm more clear-headed than I've ever been. You've traumatized yourself, Dr. Chen said from the doorway. Apparently she'd been invited to this intervention too. Isabella, I understand your intentions, but the psychological damage you've done to yourself is severe. I know, Isabella said softly. I know exactly what this is costing me, but their trauma is worse. Their damage is worse. And if I have to break myself to free them, that's a price I'm willing to pay. When they finally understood her price, she'd already paid it in full. But the payment wasn't complete yet. She still had $800,000 to raise. Still had the final phase of Project Phoenix to execute. She gave them a choice. Support her or don't, but don't interfere. After a long, painful silence, James spoke. I'll match whatever you still need. $1 million to Project Phoenix, on one condition. What condition? You stop. After this, you stop. No more Sophia. No more appointments. You've proven your point, you've done your penance or whatever this is. But you have to stop before it destroys you completely. Isabella looked at her brother, this man who'd always protected her, who loved her even when he didn't understand her. Okay, she said. Okay. But it was already too late for that promise to mean anything. The final phase of Project Phoenix required Isabella to do something more dangerous than anything she'd attempted before. The trafficking network's leadership was gathering in 2 weeks for their annual meeting, a grotesque celebration where they auctioned off their premium inventory to their highest-paying clients. Isabella had an invitation. Sophia had become one of Discreet Elite's most requested companions, and that success had attracted attention from the network's recruiters. They wanted to bring her into their operation permanently, offering her a management position that came with substantial income and benefits. They had no idea she was planning to bring the whole operation down. With James's money, she had everything she needed for the extraction. She'd hired a private security team run by former Special Forces operatives who specialized in hostage recovery. She'd arranged safe houses across 3 continents. She'd worked with underground networks that helped trafficking victims disappear and start new lives. But she needed one more thing, the complete list of victims and their locations. That information was stored on a secure server that could only be accessed physically from inside the network's headquarters. You're not going in there, James said when she explained the plan. We'll find another way. There is no other way. I'm already in their system. I'm already invited to the meeting. This is the only chance we'll have to get this information before they move the victims again. Isabella, if they find out who you are. They won't. I've been Sophia for a year. I know how to play this role. But playing the role had cost more than she'd admitted to anyone, even herself. The dissociation had become so severe that sometimes she forgot which identity was real. Was she Isabella Montgomery playing Sophia, or Sophia playing Isabella Montgomery? The boundary had become permeable, unstable. Dr. Chen had warned her this would happen. The human psyche isn't designed to maintain split identities long-term. Eventually, something breaks. Isabella knew something was breaking. She felt it in the way her hands shook when she was alone, in the nightmares that left her gasping for air, in the moments of complete blankness when she couldn't remember who she was supposed to be. But she was so close. Just one more job, one more night playing Sophia, then she could stop. Then she could try to put herself back together. The night of the meeting, Isabella dressed carefully in an outfit that cost more than most people made in a month, because these people noticed things like that, valued things like that. She checked her neural interface one last time, making sure the recording device was hidden so deep in her encrypted storage that even the most sophisticated scan wouldn't detect it. James had wanted to come with the security team to wait outside, but she'd refused. If anything goes wrong, I need you to execute the rest of Project Phoenix. You have all the information, all the contacts. Promise me you'll finish it. Bella, don't talk like that. Promise me, James. He'd promised, his eyes filled with tears. The meeting was held in a penthouse that overlooked the city, a location that symbolized everything Isabella hated about how money could insulate people from consequences. There were about 20 people there, the network's leadership, their top clients, and several women who'd been successful enough in the organization to be promoted to recruiting roles. Isabella recognized several faces: tech executives, politicians, finance moguls, men she'd sat next to at charity events, men her father did business with. The auction was worse than she'd imagined. They displayed the women on screens, reading their information like they were livestock. Ages, languages spoken, specialties. Many were teenagers, some were children. Isabella felt rage and disgust warring with the need to maintain her cover, to smile and laugh and pretend this was normal. To be Sophia, who understood how the world really worked and didn't judge. She found the server room during a bathroom break, exactly where her reconnaissance had indicated. The security was biometric, but she'd prepared for that too. A tiny device that mimicked the fingerprints and retinal scan of the woman who'd recruited her, obtained through methods Isabella tried not to think too hard about. The download took 6 minutes. 6 minutes where she stood in a locked room, her heart hammering, waiting for someone to discover her. The data transferred to her neural interface, encrypted and hidden. She just closed the server room door when a hand grabbed her arm. Going somewhere. It was Victor Molina, the network's head of security. A man whose background check revealed a history of violence that made Isabella's blood run cold. "Ladies' room," she said, keeping her voice light. "Am I not allowed?" His eyes were flat reptilian. "You were in there a long time." "I was fixing my makeup. Would you like to come check my lipstick?" For a moment, she thought it would work, thought the act would hold. Then his hand tightened on her arm and she knew she'd been made. "I think we need to have a conversation, Sophia. Or should I say, Isabella Montgomery." Everything happened very fast after that. Victor pulled her into a private office. 2 other men joined them. They knew who she was, had known for weeks apparently. They'd been watching her, waiting to see what she was really after. "Did you really think we wouldn't recognize Richard Montgomery's daughter?" Victor laughed. "We thought you were rebelling, slumming it. We thought it was funny. But then you started asking too many questions, accessing systems you shouldn't have access to." Isabella's neural interface was screaming silent alerts, trying to send emergency signals to James, to the security team. But the room was shielded, blocking all transmissions. "What's on your neural interface?" Victor demanded. "Nothing, personal files." "We'll see about that." They had a device designed to forcibly access neural interfaces, technology that was illegal but effective. Isabella knew what it would do: rip through her encryption, expose everything. The evidence, the victim list, Project Phoenix, all of it. She had one choice. The neural interface had a failsafe she'd installed months ago, never really believing she'd use it. A command that would trigger a complete system wipe, destroying all the data to prevent it from being stolen. But it would also cause catastrophic feedback through her neural pathways. The technology wasn't designed to handle that kind of sudden disconnect. The damage could be severe, permanent. "Last chance," Victor said, moving toward her with the extraction device. Isabella closed her eyes and thought the command. The pain was beyond description. It felt like her brain was being torn apart from the inside. Synapses firing randomly, memories fragmenting and dissolving. She felt herself screaming but couldn't hear it, felt herself falling but couldn't tell which direction was down. The last thing she thought before everything went dark was, the data is safe. James will finish it. The 137 will be free. When James got the emergency alert from Isabella's failsafe system, the one that activated when her neural interface detected catastrophic damage, he was already on his way to the meeting location with the security team. They breached the building within minutes, finding Isabella unconscious on the floor, her neural interface sparking with electrical feedback. The men who'd attacked her were gone, fled as soon as they realized what she'd done. They'd left behind a woman in neural shock, her brain struggling to process what had happened. At the hospital, the doctors were grim. The damage is extensive. We've never seen anything like this. It's as if she deliberately overloaded her own system. The feedback has caused severe trauma to multiple brain regions. Will she recover? Victoria asked, her voice breaking. We don't know. She's in a coma. Her brain activity is abnormal. We'll have to wait and see. James sat by his sister's bedside, looking at her peaceful face and wanting to scream. She'd done it. She'd saved the data, protected the victims, ensured Project Phoenix could continue. But the cost. He opened his own neural interface and accessed the files Isabella had transmitted to him in the seconds before her system shut down. Everything was there. Names, locations, financial records, evidence of crimes that would put dozens of powerful people in prison. And the list, 137 names of women and girls who needed to be extracted. I promise, he whispered to his sister. I'll finish it, I'll save them all. Project Phoenix launched 3 days later. The security team James hired executed simultaneous extractions across 12 cities. Safe houses activated. New identities distributed. The women were told about Isabella, about the woman who'd sacrificed everything to set them free. Mai, the young woman who'd started Isabella on this path, was the first one extracted. When James told her what Isabella had done, she wept. I told her she couldn't save everyone, Mai said. I told her it was too dangerous, but she said someone had to try, someone with nothing to lose. She had everything to lose, James said. No, Mai corrected gently. She had everything to give. There's a difference. The evidence Isabella had collected led to the largest human trafficking prosecution in U.S. history. 17 arrests, including 2 senators and a federal judge. The network was dismantled, its financial infrastructure destroyed. All 137 women were freed. Isabella remained in a coma for 6 weeks. When she finally woke up, the doctors warned her family that she'd likely experienced significant brain damage, memory loss, cognitive impairment, possibly permanent. But when her eyes opened and focused on James sitting beside her, she smiled. Did you finish it? She asked, her voice weak but clear. All of them, James said, crying. We saved all of them. She nodded, satisfied. Then, I can't remember much. The doctors say the neural damage destroyed a lot of memories. My time at Stanford is fuzzy. Most of the past 2 years is just gone. That might be a blessing, James said softly. Maybe, she looked at him seriously. But I remember why I did it. I remember the 137. I remember thinking that if I could give them back their freedom by giving up pieces of myself, it was worth it. And I still think that was worth it. Over the following months, Isabella slowly recovered. The physical damage healed, but the psychological and neurological effects were permanent. She'd never fully regained the memories she'd lost. Her cognitive function was good, but not what it had been. She'd never be able to do the kind of complex neuroscience research she'd been capable of before. But she'd freed 137 people. She'd dismantled a network that had destroyed thousands of lives. She'd proven that one person, willing to sacrifice everything, could actually change the world. The media called her a hero. Documentaries were made. Books were written. But Isabella shied away from the attention. She preferred to work quietly with the survivors of Project Phoenix, helping them adjust to their new lives. "Do you regret it?" Charlotte asked her one day, a year after everything had happened. They were having coffee, the first time in 2 years they'd managed a normal conversation. Isabella thought about the question, about the memories she'd lost, about the trauma she'd endured, about the parts of herself she'd sacrificed and would never get back. "No," she said finally, "I don't regret it, because I learned something that most people never understand. True freedom isn't about having wealth or privilege or power. It's about being willing to give those things up for something that matters more." She looked at her friend. "I was the most privileged person I knew. I had every advantage, every opportunity, but I wasn't free. I was trapped in a life that felt meaningless, surrounded by people who measured their worth in zeros on a bank statement. The day I decided to use my privilege as a weapon against injustice, that was the day I became truly free. Even if it cost you everything." Isabella smiled, and despite everything she'd been through, it was genuine. "I didn't lose everything. I gained something worth more than anything I gave up. I gained the knowledge that my life mattered, that I used what I had to help people who had nothing. That's a kind of wealth no money can buy." The survivors of Project Phoenix thrived. They built new lives, started businesses, went to school, fell in love, had children. Every year, on the anniversary of their extraction, they gathered together, a family bound not by blood but by shared trauma and shared freedom. And every year, Isabella attended, listening to their stories, watching them grow stronger and more whole. Each success was proof that the price she'd paid had been worth it. "I became a social worker, specializing in helping trafficking victims. You showed me that freedom is something you fight for," she told Isabella. "Not something someone gives you. I want to teach that to others." The motivational message was clear to anyone paying attention. Wealth and privilege aren't valuable in themselves. They're only valuable when used to lift others up. True freedom comes not from having everything, but from being willing to sacrifice anything for something that truly matters. Isabella Montgomery had been born with every advantage. She died, in a very real sense, to give those advantages to people who'd been born with none. And in that death and resurrection, she'd found something most wealthy people never experience: a life of genuine meaning and purpose. The price of freedom, it turned out, wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in what you were willing to lose to gain it. And Isabella Montgomery had paid that price in full.